Imu is not a Yonko, not an Admiral, not a god you can simply overthrow. Imu is something far more terrifying. Imu is the system itself. And that's why asking who defeats Imu is already the wrong question. The real question is how you defeat someone who decides what reality even is. The empty throne was built as a lie. No ruler, no king, no god. A symbol meant to convince the world that no one sits above everyone else. But someone does sit there, and the moment Imu sits on that throne, the world's foundation collapses. Because Imu does not rule by strength. Imu rules by permission. Yonko rule territory. Admirals enforce law. Gorosei manage authority. Imu decides what is allowed to exist. Countries erased. Islands removed. Names deleted from history itself. That alone already tells you something crucial. Imu is not part of the balance of power. Imu is the balance of power. This is why power scaling Imu like a fighter is meaningless. Whitebeard could destroy the world. Roger conquered the seas. Rocks terrified the entire era. And yet none of them dethroned Imu. Not because they were weak, but because the system eliminates you long before you reach the throne. Here is the most uncomfortable truth of the Final Saga. Imu does not rule through fear alone. Imu rules through normalization. People don't feel oppressed. They feel safe. They feel ordered. They feel protected. The most effective form of control that exists. When people defend the cage they are trapped in. That is why the Void Century had to disappear. Not because it was dangerous, because it was incompatible. That century represented a world without permission, dreams without hierarchy, freedom without rulers. Joy Boy did not fail because he lacked strength. He failed because the world was not ready to reject control. And yet, Joy Boy left something behind. Not a weapon, not an army, his will. There was exactly one moment where Imu lost composure. One presence that made the ruler of the world react. Joy Boy. Not his body, not his power, his presence alone. That moment reveals the first crack in Imu's absolute control. Imu can be affected by willpower, but not ordinary will, not ambition, not ego. This is will on a different level. Void Century will. A will that does not dominate people, but makes domination impossible. That is why Luffy matters. Not because he is strong, but because he is incompatible with Imu. Nika is not a power-up. Nika is an idea. Imu rules through fear. Nika spreads laughter. Imu enforces rules. Nika breaks logic. You cannot dominate someone who laughs at reality itself. This is why Gear 5 terrifies the world government. It does not obey expectations. It does not follow logic. It does not respect the system. But here is the brutal reality. Freedom alone does not kill immortality. Even if Luffy breaks Imu's ideology, if Imu cannot die, the system resets. And this is where the real problem begins. Immortality. If Imu truly received the perennial youth surgery, then Imu does not just rule the world. Imu outlasts it. Empires rise, empires fall. Kings die, heroes fade. Imu remains. That is the ultimate advantage. But immortality is not invincibility. It does not mean untouchable. It means persistent. You do not defeat immortals by killing them. You defeat them by neutralizing them, disconnecting them, stripping them of influence. And that is where Blackbeard becomes unavoidable. The Yami Yami no Mi does something terrifying. It ignores status. Blackbeard does not overpower abilities. He turns them off. If Imu's immortality is sustained by a devil fruit, Blackbeard is the reset button. This is likely what Roxdy Zebek understood. He did not want territory. He wanted the throne. That alone tells us something chilling. Rox believed Emu could be reached. Then there is Law. Law is not here to win. Law is here to break mechanisms. If immortality is an active process, it can be disrupted. Body swaps, internal destruction, reality surgery. Emu does not fear death. Emu fears loss of control. And now we reach the core of the entire system, the red line. It divides the world, separates the seas, controls movement. That is not geography. That is infrastructure. Destroy the red line, and the system collapses. No choke points, no isolation, no artificial balance. The world reconnects, freedom spreads, Emu loses the foundation of control. Elbaf was never a side arc. It was preparation. Giants do not fight for kings. They fight for world-shaping events. And Loki's hammer is not just a weapon. It is a test of will. But now comes the most dangerous detail of all. Emu reacted to one name, Nefertari D. Lily. Not rage, not hatred, shock. That reaction proves something terrifying. There is history Emu could not erase, and that is where Vivi enters the story. She does not fight with power, she fights with truth. Truth is the one thing Emu never controlled. So how does Emu finally fall? Not with one punch, not with one hero. Emu falls when immortality is neutralized, when the red line collapses, when history returns, when people reject control. This is not a boss fight. This is the end of a system. So now tell me, do you think Emu dies, or does Emu disappear along with the world they created? And here's the part most people overlook. Emu is not the end of One Piece. Emu is the proof of what the world became when fear won. For 800 years, this world survived by lying to itself, by calling control order, by calling silence peace, by calling obedience justice. And Emu is the embodiment of that lie. So when Emu finally falls, this won't feel like a victory. It will feel like waking up. Because the real final enemy of One Piece was never a character. It was the idea that freedom needs permission. And the moment the world rejects that idea, the moment people choose their own dreams again, that's when the dawn truly arrives. Not because a king was defeated, but because a system was rejected. And that is how One Piece ends. Drop your theory in the comments. Subscribe, because One Piece is not ending with a battle. It is ending with a revolution.